Welcome to Talk Tantra to Me. It is such an honor to be holding space for this divine knowledge to make its way into your ears and lifestyle. Today, I talk Tantra with Charles Clay. He is an inner peace coach, dynamic speaker, published author, and the founder of Freedom from Pain Coaching. I am so grateful for his content and so appreciative that he's here on the podcast to offer his perspective of living an expansive life. So thank you for being here. Why don't you start by telling us a bit about your journey with becoming an inner peace coach? How did you discover this passion and purpose?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for that introduction. And yeah, it's been quite a journey. Pain and anxiety have been some of my biggest teachers along this journey, and allowed for some really potent and powerful initiations. And so I can think back to, let's start with anxiety, because I think a lot of people can relate to that one. And this was an energy that I was dealing with undercover, essentially, where I wouldn't let other people see it. It was like this uncomfortable, nervous feeling that would show up in social situations, usually at the worst times. And so I got good at hiding it. And I learned how to just be stoic and control my emotions after being a very loose cannon, in adolescence. And so essentially like turned off the light switch to my emotions. And that was an upgrade from where I was early childhood. And that led to a lot of physical pain showing up, pointing to all this energy that hadn't fully been processed. And one of those big common denominators was anxiety. And so it was like I got really good at avoiding things and avoiding feeling things that I didn't like. I had a million biohacks to just feeling, the highest joy and, elevating your state, with breath work, with amazing biohack techniques. But there were some big rocks that I wasn't willing to take a look at until then. And so after anxiety got very intense at times and became really challenging to deal with, I decided to try something new, and I just invited it in. It's like recognizing that anxiety is energy and energy is information. And so there was some important information that I hadn't fully received yet from my body. And it was like an old friend knocking at the door really loud every time that anxiety would show up, saying, "Hey, I have something important to share with you." And so when I let that in, we could even say I invited it in for anxiety, if you may. And this was the first time that I actually like sat in that uncomfortable space of like really going into the uncomfortable feelings, see what was there, and discovered gold. Like literally, as that began to pass, that painful, uncomfortable feeling, I watched the mind hop in with like a million ways of avoiding it. It's like, go to the fridge, stuff it. No, hurry, just get on Instagram, look for some dopamine, or, all these different ways to avoid sitting with this feeling. And finally, as I sat with it, it began to dissolve. And then it was like this old friend was sharing with me, "Hey, take a look at these things you've been avoiding, and there's some gold here." It helped me look straight in the face at my biggest fear. And my biggest fear, above all the, fear of rejection, fear of failure, of looking stupid, being embarrassed, all these things, was a superseding fear of deathbed regrets. I've had and experienced a lot of my loved ones that have passed. And so I have a very intimate relationship with death and understand the temporariness of this human experience. And so jumping forward to someday will be my last. And when we get to look back and go, "Hey, did I play full out? Did I share every message on my heart? Did I share all the things I could to be of service and help as many people as I could?" And at that point in my life, it was a no. And so that scared the crap out of me. And it began to be this very inspiring fear that actually helped me improve my relationship with fear. It was like a catalyst that lit under my butt to helped me realize, like, wow, I have been consuming way more than I'm creating. And we're all epic creators here. We've just been conditioned this way. Oh, you don't feel good? Take a pill. You don't feel good? Stuff it with this. Like all these ways of getting things externally to try to numb out what's actually there. And so it was this huge epiphany for me to recognize that, wow, I finally have time to myself. And now I can get to work on all these ideas I've had and the messages on my heart and begin creating from this space of inspired action, of like getting to die happy, and so that shifted everything for me, and including my relationship with anxiety. And so I don't feel the same levels of anxiety. And even if I do feel it, it's like that old friend that's knocking at the door saying, hey, you're consuming a bit more than you're creating. You might want to check in with that. And there's some things you're avoiding here. And so anybody listening, you can think about, hey, when that comes up, that uncomfortable feeling, what is it that we're avoiding? Is it the uncomfortable feelings? Is it the to-do list? Is it your God-given gifts that you want to share in this life instead of taking them to the grave? And so really confronting that was revolutionary for me and inspired my path of learning some really powerful ways to access our natural state of inner peace and getting to share that with others.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with such breadth. I think that it's something that we can all relate to, and especially me today. One of the things I love about holding space on this podcast is that, even for myself, like the guest that I just by happen chance end up speaking to on that particular day tends to have a bit of a medicine or message for the mess that I'm currently in. So yeah, just being vulnerable here and sharing that this is something that, I'm moving through, on a day-to-day basis as well. It can be so addicting to use the tools that we've been given, the biohacking sort of things, to kind of meet our pain with a level of like, fix it. Like, I have to fix this. I have to get to the other side of this feeling. So let me do the things that I know work. And sometimes they do work. And sometimes they work, just by happenstance. And sometimes they work, for me, a lot of the things I often do to find that inner peace are going out into nature. So it's like, I'm going to do the thing to fix this feeling, which to me might be nature. And sometimes that works because I am able to actually hold space. It's a way for me to hold space and to go within. And sometimes that's not necessarily the mode that gets me to that space. But I do feel in resonance with this concept of being addicted to distraction. And the distraction can go from, maybe the more societal acceptable distractions, or the distractions that feel more innate within us, like being distracted to work, being distracted by social media, being distracted by the drama in relationships, etc. And now we have all these biohacking tools that can also become distractions too. So yeah, I just appreciate you sharing on that. And am in resonance with that, just particularly today. It's been one of those days where it's like, something is awry. And in Tantra, we say the deeper that you meet that pain, however it manifests, the greater your capacity to actually receive pleasure. And the message that's been coming through to me today is this discontentment is actually synonymous with the growth that wants to come in. It's like that piece, but it's definitely a interesting dichotomy to surrender to that as well. So I'm curious where this brings you now. Like, how does this show up in your work, like your process, your way of being in the world to help people with these pieces?
Yeah, the deeper I've dove on these initiations and the lessons and blessings that have come from, sitting with anxiety, grief, and even just life's biggest challenges, like my biggest physical pain I've experienced, have always yielded these incredible lessons and blessings and deeper self-discovery. And so that's what I've been called to share, that, hey, yeah, we all have a dark night of the soul, and we all go through some really challenging things in this life that we signed up for. And it's all happening for us. And
Yeah.
there are some important these initiations are very important, and there's some real big golden nuggets to discover about ourselves on the other end of them. And basically, my journey, I learned the hard way a lot of these lessons, and so I get to teach in an easier way. And I've condensed that into an inner peace process that I guide people through. And it is amazing for going to the source of where limiting beliefs come from. It's usually a younger part of us. We'll take the abandonment wound, for example. Say mom or dad leaves, parents get divorced, one of them leaves, we feel abandoned. And at a young age, that's a lot that can come up. Anger, sadness, grief. And we're not taught in school how to process these emotions yet, or how to deal with that. So oftentimes it gets stuck as energy that becomes issues in our tissues and can show up as physical pain and such. So that can create, in those moments, oftentimes as a child, we create these beliefs, that, oh, I must not be good enough, or it's my fault that mom and dad left, or, I'll never be good enough. I'm not worthy of receiving love. These type of beliefs that as adults, we can look at them and be like, that's silly, like, I feel worthy, I'm, good enough and all the things. But if this is still running in our subconscious, then it's going to keep showing up in our experience, right?
Yeah.
And that might show up in, blocks to abundance, or blocks to greater pleasure, or intimacy, and these things. So this is the easiest process I found for going to the source of where those were created and getting to pull those limiting beliefs like weeds, and then connect to a higher self, the higher version of yourself that can encompass and embody some deeper wisdom, some deeper truths. And in this process, it's beautiful because your body finally gets to metabolize any energy that's been stuck or you've held on from those experiences. So it frees up a lot of energy. And then I introduce them to a visioneering practice, which is just really fun. It's working when it feels good, and it's getting super clear on your North Star, what you are here to create in this life and the path to that. And so then you get to channel all this new energy that's flowing into that North Star and your highest excitement and the things that really light you up on your path to purpose. And so it gets to be really exciting. And I love this work because it's an opportunity to reparent and supply the love, support, and safety to the parts of us that need it most. And in doing that, it frees up so much energy and allows for a lot of dreams to come true. And this has been the case for me, for so many of my clients. So it's just really enriched, really deep work that's been a lot of fun. And then once they experience it, then they get a take-home version of this inner peace process that they can then use step by step when the triggers show up. And that's like, you get angry or you're feeling sad, the mind will be like, oh, just get back to work, right? Or, just go to the fridge, or just go on Netflix and escape from it. And if you keep perpetuating those band-aids that the mind provides, then it keeps staying stuck and keeps showing up suffering. Or you can choose, okay, now I have a step-by-step process that I can gain the lessons and blessings as to how this is happening for me, release any limiting beliefs that I've created at an early age, and allow myself to align with more of my dreams coming true in this life and feel what that's like already. So it's really exciting work. It's very experiential. So it's fun to try to put into words because when you experience it, it's profound.
Yeah, I'm curious what you have to say for people that feel like, yes, like I very clearly need this. And having that internal struggle of feeling like so many other, like too much is going on for me to make time for this or to like dedicate myself to this. Like, what would you say to those people?
Yeah. So the not enough time one is, again, that too is usually a limiting belief.
Mm-hmm.
This scarcity of time, right? And I would admit that time is much more valuable than money. Money is one of these things, form of currency, energy that we can get back. Time, not so much. right? But there are ways, if you are aligned with your highest excitement, your North Star, your path of purpose, and these things that really light you up, and that your God-given gifts that you're meant to share, and you're on that path of getting to help others with that, then it becomes a very long-term fulfilling path, which is much different than always resorting to the short-term, fix, or the dopamine hit, or the just get out of this bad feeling for right now, right? Because then it keeps showing up, keeps perpetuating the experience of suffering until we go to the source of where it's coming from. And so time scarcity is very similar to like money scarcity, right? And we create both of those both the time. I don't know how deep you want to go into this, but we're still on this Gregorian calendar that was created back in like Caesar, when he was king. He created this calendar so that they could collect taxes, and it's not very in sync with the seasons, and so it's off the mark with our actual natural time. And so you can live life in a little more of a synchronistic, serendipitous experiences where you see how time's actually working for you and with you, and you can create more time freedom in your experience. And I help people design that for themselves. And so it's great once you release these limiting beliefs. It opens up a whole new realm of possibilities for people. So it gets to be really exciting because there's always going to be resistance. There's always going to be triggers. There's always going to be like the next thing that is poking at the uncomfortable feelings and all that. But if you have a process and some tools to go to the source of it and resolve it for good, and be like, wow, this is what I learned about myself, or this is the golden nugget I gained by going through this initiation, then it's always worthwhile, right? And then those golden nuggets can help a lot of other people if you connect in that way. So it's always worth it.
Yeah. And I love that you address the fact that there's always going to be resistance, because I've invested like my whole adult life to different like growth opportunities, right? And there is still resistance at every opportunity to invest either my time or money or whatever into an experience that offers growth. And I think that acknowledging that and just accepting it is one piece, and recognizing that like that part of us that's resistant is often really just trying to protect, and being able to acknowledge that piece that wants to protect and give it the space to be, seen and heard is a really valuable part of the process. Because at the end of the day, the part that's wanting to protect in the case of time scarcity is, well, if I take the time away from all of my obligations and responsibilities, then I'm not going to have the abundance that, I'm currently bringing in, or I'm not going to be able to heal this relationship or whatever it is. But oftentimes when we actually just take the time to remove ourselves from the situation and to get really clear, to invest in an inner peace process or whatever it might be, that actually provides the answers to the other problems, just by like, it's an investment, and I think that that's the best way to look at these experiences, that it's really an investment of your time that can make every problem moving forward from that point much more easily figure outable and solvable by taking the time out to invest in the resource, in getting the resources that you need.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I get pinged so many examples with clients that I've had of that are trying to get to the next level in their business and their success and their abundance and their wealth, and keep hitting the ceiling until they actually address the grief that's been in the way. So this is an internal energy that's been stuck, that's creating an external experience of limiting amount of money coming to you. And what's fascinating, that you wouldn't think like, oh, grief and success and money coming in, like how are those two correlated? But by releasing and understanding how, beauty and grief, like what's there for you in that, letting those tears fall and seeing like the depths of sorrow of how much you love someone, and recognizing that and getting to share that through liquid emotion is actually really beautiful. And so in releasing that internal block, this opens up. All of a sudden they see all these new opportunities, getting a raise at their job, or they're creating a new branch in their business that becomes really successful, and it seems almost effortless. And it's because they addressed what was in the way already, right?
Yeah.
Some of the limiting beliefs that were pulled as well, and embodied a deeper truth of, I'm fully worthy for all this and all the greatest things that this life has to offer, and I have a ton to give. And so it's fun to notice the difference between the decisions we make from the mind of a fight or flight state are far different than the decisions that we make when we're heart centered, when we're calm, we're grounded, we're feeling embodied. And when we make decisions from there, it creates entirely different experience. And so it's worth always looking at the resistance or the internal blocks that are in the way of that. And it's fun because you'll watch as the mind is like, oh my gosh, I got to do this, I got to do that, I don't have enough time for this, or I got to make sure this works out for me, and what's in it for me, right? Like this kind of chatter, you're in the fight or flight state in the mind.
Yeah.
And so you can be like, who's the one observing this, right? And take a deep breath or 5 and just drop visually, just experiencing your awareness drop in 12 inches into your heart space, where it's just this place of unconditional love where you can connect with everyone and everything. And once you take that deep breath, you're like, from the mind chatter to, wow, look at everything I have to give. Like, it's such a different operating system. And then when you get good and used to that as home base, then you can connect the two in heart coherence, as like, heart math is studied this for ages, and literally has so much data on this. When you live in that heart space, connect the mind, then it becomes a beautiful instrument of the heart. And then everything that you're engaging in is you're making sure it's actually worthy of your time, and that it's creating a win-win-win situation for everybody involved. It's like the mind is Problemville, and the heart space, your body's intelligence, each and every cell there's endless solutions there. And so when you're operating from that space, becomes really exciting, because it's always in the highest and greatest good for everyone, including Mother Earth that's supporting us right under our feet right now.
Yeah, to me, the TLDR of all of this is that everything is happening for you, which is really hard to hear when you're in the pain. And that's a big part of it, is the trust that we get to have in that. Yeah.
There's 3 questions that I offer along those lines that can help anybody. I think it's really useful when you're in that pain state, or when you're dealing with super intense pain, anxiety, just really in the initiation, those challenging experiences in life. Take some deep, expansive breaths and ask yourself these 3 questions. And this is really powerful. It seems so simple, but it's giving your mind, which is just running off these old default patterns that are usually negative patterns of thought, into, no, here's a new assignment. It's like letting your mind work like the Labrador dog that you throw a fetch with, right? The dog's so excited. Yo, you gave me something to do. Let's do it. The mind's the same way. You can control it simply by asking the right questions.
Yeah.
So you're in a painful state. What do a lot of people do? They like search Google, right? And then they go in a diagnosis of like, what is this? Oh no. And then worst case scenario, and it like amplifies, like snowball effect.
Yeah.
Or you could take a deep breath and begin with, how is this happening for me? Just like you said, that instantly takes us out of victim mode, which is why is this happening to me? Which prolongs suffering, right? Into an empowering state, which is, how is this happening for me? And that seems like a very simple question, but it allows the mind to be like a heat seeker to revealing the answers. And then the second question is, what are the lessons and the blessings to gain from this?
Yep.
And this is cool, because everybody listening has evidence of all your biggest challenges. You've gained a deeper understanding of yourself. You've gained some huge, resiliency, strength, inner peace, and just tons of lessons and blessings that have come from all those challenges. So even if you're in it right now, it can be really useful to ask those questions and then watch as the answers begin to show up. And then the third one is what wants to change, right? Because this is where we can actually honor our heart's intelligence, that wisdom that's within us that's like, oh, okay, I've been consuming too much alcohol or Netflix or on Instagram too much, right? And then if you honor that and follow your intuition, which is telling, it's the quiet voice over the loud mind chatter,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is worthy of your attention, this path of highest excitement, right? And if you take that inspired action, there's always incredible rewards waiting for you. And every time you say yes and honor that intuitive hit, you are improving your connection to your highest self, to source, to God, creator. So what a great way to honor our inspiration every time we get that intuitive hit, to take that inspired action as soon as possible and change whatever needs to be changed in our lives. And that's how you can make, like, I mean, I've seen clients in as little as 8 weeks. They have shared with me that they've worked with therapists for over 3 years. And in a matter of 8 weeks, they had more dreams come true and more experiential learning and gotten more breakthroughs in a matter of 8 weeks than they ever did with three years of therapy. And I'm not knocking therapy at all. I just feel that sometimes when you just keep talking about it, and you're missing out on the somatic experience and the lessons and blessings that lie on the other end of fear and of your challenges, then there's a way through, and it can be super fast. It's amazing how fast things can shift in your life when you begin to ask the right questions and then you honor your intuition and take inspired action.
Yeah, I love that framework that you've offered for this. I think that those questions make it a lot easier for people to understand what it looks like and how simple it can be to move from being the victim of the circumstance and the feeling into a conscious creator, because that feeling is happening for you to figure something out. It's a gift. It may not feel like that in the moment, but it's information, as you had mentioned. It's information. It's sharing that something is out of alignment, something is in dis-ease. And if we don't honor that dis-ease and respect it and get curious about it, that's where it physically manifests into disease, into a longer term problem, which I know is something that you work with pain. And I'd love to explore more like about physical pain or more chronic issues, because you do work with that as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important to share my background with that, my relationship with pain. It was something I avoided as well. It was like this thing to get away from or just always seek pleasure instead. And this was even after I graduated college, and with my degree in kinesiology, and became a trainer back in San Diego. And in 2008, I was up in Mammoth Mountain with a couple buddies, two friends of mine. And this day was insane. It was a full-on blizzard. There was snow coming from every which way. It was like a whiteout. You could barely see a blur of a tree 10 feet in front of you. So it was this pretty scary situation we were in, because they had shut down the lifts and we're already at the top going, hey, there's only one way down. Like, let's just charge and make the best of it. And so we're flying down this, mountain, this white abyss. It was just really surreal and having a blast until about halfway down. I went off a jump and I didn't know it was there. And I'm in midair, freaking out and tensed up. I didn't know where the landing was. It felt like I just went off a cliff. And so when I hit, it felt like I just got hit by a lightning bolt in my low back. And it was the most physical, excruciating pain I'd experienced. And I called to my friends, hoping that they could hear me and help, but they were already ahead of me and couldn't hear anything through the muffled snow. And so I looked at my phone and my phone was dead, like no charge, battery dead. So here I am in the middle of this giant mountain, nobody around, in like a level 11 on a 10 scale of pain. And it's in those moments that you just find another gear. And I had to channel my inner Spartan warrior and be like, okay, I have to get down somehow. So I clicked off my board and actually sat on my board because I couldn't stand up fully. and slid down as far as I could. And then I'd keel over for a while, breathe into the pain. And it was this like really powerful initiation. And then I
Mm.
made it down. And I went and saw doctors and didn't like what they were telling me. They showed me these x-rays and they're like, man, you're in real dire need of surgery. Like if you don't get a surgery ASAP, you might never move the same again. And for someone that appreciates these human bodies, the greatest technology I know of on the planet, I was just so, you know, that freaked me out. I was like, man, I have to go another route. And I decided to listen to that little quiet voice of intuition, even when I was in a fight or flight state, and choose a path of self-healing instead of going under the knife. And that meant, sitting in my apartment, I could barely crawl to the bathroom. I was in so much pain and had to like really sit with all the emotions that were coming up. It was like forcing me to sit with the shame of not even being able to get up or do anything productive,
Mm-hmm.
fear of will I ever move the same again? and some of the grief that I didn't process yet from losing my mom earlier on. And so sitting in a pool of tears and letting these emotions move through me was like profound. It was like this deep clearing on the other end. And I remember setting an intention while going into a meditation. It was a guided meditation by Abraham Hicks. And I set the intention to receiving all answers to healing naturally. And while I was in that meditation, a friend I hadn't talked to in over 2 years texted me in that moment and said, hey, I heard your back's in bad shape. Check out neurokinetic therapy, NKT, the work of David Weinstock. And this took me down this amazing rabbit hole to discover ways to get answers from the body through muscle testing and how to clear up compensation patterns and resolve pain from the source. And it was like a clear path for me. And so I got in touch with him. He was in the Bay at the time. He set me up with one of his top students in San Diego. And that's when I met Christine. And I walked into her office looking like Shakira, like stuck in a mid-hip dance move. My hips were over to the left, my upper body's over to the right. And that was representative of how out of alignment my body was showing me how out of alignment I was with my purpose at that time.
Mm.
I was training like 10 clients a day, living off coffee and going out on the weekends and partying and staying up late. And so something had to give. And I didn't pay attention to those like signs. Hey, you might want to change this, right? So eventually it was like the equivalent of getting hit by a Mack truck. This injury that cracked me open to discovering all these lessons and blessings. And in one session, I got on the table. She started testing muscle groups and tested my glutes. And she had me push down on her hand with my foot and nothing was working. It was just like, whoa, I'm not even getting any activation there. She's like, yep, that's a fail. We need to figure out why your glutes aren't firing. I was like, that's weird. So she had me clench my jaw and then retested the glutes, and all of a sudden they're back online. I was like, interesting. So my body had just showed us that the neurological traffic jam was in my jaw. And so the signal couldn't get to the big guns, my glutes, to fire and contract and help stabilize my spine and my movements. And so we found a couple other compensation patterns like that and cleared them up. She's putting these rubber gloves on. She's like, I know we just met, but I'm going to have to go in your mouth. I said, what? And she released my jaw. And, later to find out jaw is associated with our limbic system. We oftentimes carry the energy of anger, resentment, even revenge in the jaw. There's so much going on there. And so this is a common neurological traffic jam that can shut down muscle groups throughout the kinetic chain. And so once she released that, all of a sudden I could feel like the energy flowing again. And sure enough, my glutes turned back online. We did this for a couple other compensation patterns and I got off the table and I was in full alignment again. I felt like 90% better in one session. And so it was a huge epiphany. I gave her a giant hug. I said, I'm going to see you every week. I've taken all of David Weinstock's courses. And that's what I did. I studied under him and became a neurokinetic therapist and got to help other people have options to healing themselves. and instead of having to go the usual route. And even worked with a lot of post-op people that have, had scar tissue from operations. And I show them how that scar tissue becomes a neurological traffic jam and shuts off certain muscles. And so with a quick tune-up, once we learn where that dysfunction's at, then I show them a quick tune-up. It's like same thing, release the jaw if that's the compensator, and then reactivate those glutes, the muscles that were offline. And every time they do that, it's increasing that neurological efficiency. Once you restore function in the body, then there's no need for the pain, right? And so, of course, after I opened up my practice, I went deeper and deeper into a lot of the common denominators that I discovered with the emotional aspect of it, and then as well as the metaphysics. And so these are some three key components that I address with my work that is very comprehensive and allows people to receive those lessons and blessings in an accelerated fashion so that the pain doesn't need to keep showing up again down the road. It's like, oh, I see why that's happening for me. And now I gain the lessons and blessings. Now you move through that initiation, you feel pain-free, and then on to the next, epic challenge, whatever that may be. So
yeah. What a celebration. I'm so happy that you found the answers that you needed and trusted yourself. That's really incredible and so beautiful and so inspirational for, everyone listening. I'm sure it's wow. They say that the universe will give you like a feather and then a car horn honking and then a car crash if you're not, listening. And it sounds like you kind of got like, maybe that car or that car crash. But that's sometimes part of our journey. And it's really beautiful that it showed you how out of alignment you were. And now it sounds like you're able to catch that feather because of having that experience. Absolutely. Is that true?
Now I always listen to the feathers. I'm very in tune with my intuition now. And so I'm always just, it's either a funk yes, or it's a no. And so I always take inspired action with my intuition, and it just leads me in the coolest places and experiences and creations, and co-creations. So that's what led me here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be difficult to trust that, especially when we live in a society that really profits off of our blind trust in so many cases. And that's not to say that the institutions in our lives, don't provide value in one way or another, but there is the concept of trusting yourself first. And that's a really beautiful thing that, people can take away from this just as one little golden nugget. So I appreciate that. So we've spoken a lot about pain and alchemizing pain and finding pain into purpose. But I know that one of the foundations of your work or one of your guiding principles is also play. And I love that concept. I love the concept of moving through the world as sort of a sacred playground. So I'm curious if you would like to share a little bit more about why that's one of your guiding principles.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have two beautiful young girls, and they are some of my greatest teachers as well. And so I'm really blessed. They inspire me every day. One, to continue taking my own medicine. Like I still use this inner peace process when I get triggered, knowing that there is a gateway to deeper self-discovery and lessons and blessings. And so, and what's beautiful about that is that every time I choose, instead of escaping to Netflix or, social media when I'm triggered, and taking the time to go through this inner peace process to discover the lessons and to heal it for myself, then these are negative programs, generational wounds, the mother wound, the father wound, the abandonment that have been carried down for generations. And every time I choose to heal that for myself, it's also relieving and releasing that for my girls. So it's like they don't have to carry this baggage that's been carried down through so many generations. And that is exciting for me and one of my highest inspirations, because imagine what's possible, with their imagination, their, full expression without all the same, negative patterns and subconscious beliefs that we picked up. So that's exciting. And with that comes play. Like, you know that you've really done some healing work when it just comes naturally and you give yourself full permission, like sign all the permission slips, like when you're in school, to let yourself fully play. And that
Yeah.
can be, I design this strategically. This process has helped so many people relinquish and resolve their addictions to, whether it's alcohol, cannabis, so many different things, even, social media, by allowing for more rewards. And I mean healthy rewards. This is different than like, hey, I just crushed it on this podcast, or just had a really successful, client come on board. Instead of going out, having shots and having a giant sized dinner and dessert and all the things, first, it's like, let me pick from this list of healthy celebrations. And the list can have 3 different categories. The yin, which is like the, restorative, feminine aspect, the receptivity. It might be like Epsom salt bath. If your body needs some restoratives, it might be just chilling on the biomat, doing a meditation, these type of things. That can be a healthy reward because it's allowing you to access your natural pharmacy that's already within you without from anything externally. And same thing, there's other categories like the yang, like the, active action. It's like, put on your favorite song, allow your body to do the talking and just dance. And when doing this, or there's the middle category, which is like creator, your creative endeavors, right? If you're a singer, letting yourself sing. If you play an instrument, I play the handpan. So this is a great healthy reward for me after I've crushed something on my to-do list, or I've, had a successful interaction, some, big win-win-win scenario. Cool. I choose something from my healthy rewards, and that accesses those feel-good hormones, neurotransmitters, the dopamine, the serotonin, the oxytocin. All this is already within us. It's just self-sourcing it now. And every time we do that, you're reinforcing these healthy habits. And it allows us to become really good at it, rewiring our brain so that it becomes more like brushing our teeth every day. Right?
Yeah.
And this is a game changer, because then we're not relying on all these external consumption of all these things to try to feel better, all the temporary solutions. And so it's really a game changer, and it's helped a lot of people establish healthy relationships with their addictions and their vices through this process. And so a big part of that is those healthy rewards involve play, because play is just that childlike inspired action of just like letting yourself dance, letting yourself laugh, like deep belly laughs, letting yourself be goofy. And this is also, even in an adult realm, it's like, that's where we're tapping into our zone of genius. So I recognize this. Everybody's experienced it. I call it vacation vibration. And it's literally that same feeling that you get when you hit enter to go book a trip to Thailand, or to Bali, or to Australia, or some, beaches, or somewhere you've never been before, right? When you make that choice, that novelty that you're craving, that's your soul talking to you.
Yeah.
Your soul is here for expansion, the cutting edge of learning and experiencing and expansion of consciousness. And we get to do that here in the human experience, because this is Contrastville. The higher realms, we don't experience like the pain and the suffering and then the pleasure in the same next moment.
Yeah.
Like that contrast, light, dark, good, bad, we're the meaning makers of all that. And by experiencing that, it helps us choose our next path, helps us get more clear on why we're here and how we get to play through that experience. And so I call it dancing through fear. It's like, anytime you get that excited feeling about booking a trip or going somewhere that's novel, that's your soul talking to you. So honor that, say yes to that, because there's something there waiting for you. And what's really cool, and to bring this down to grounded, this is something you can apply and use right now in your day, is how can you incorporate that vacation vibration, that play, into all your daily activities and into your business? Know that that's how we access our zone of genius. is through play and being that receptivity. And so there's ways that you can incorporate that into your everyday. For example, I went to the closest place to hell, when I first moved to Austin. Do you know where that is? Some
No.
people would say it's the DMV, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so these, government buildings, hospitals, they're just classically known for the super low vibration. Like you walk in there, everybody's kind of like zombie mode. And so I could just succumb to that. Or instead, before I even go in, I drop in, elevate my state of emotion with gratitude, breathe in a couple of things that I feel grateful for, and then combine that with a crystal clear intention. And it could be really simple. I narrow it down to, I just want to have as much fun going into this building and like bring some vacation vibration and start a party in there, And so it's like, if we're going to go through hell, keep going, and you might as well have some fun while you're there. And so I get into the DMV, I get my number, sit down, I drop into a meditation. I talked to the guy next to me who had a knee brace, young guy. I was like, man, what happened? You've been kicking too much butt or what? And he's like, no, I wish I got an ACL injury and looking at surgery and all these things. I said, have you ever tried meditation for accelerating your healing? And he's like, no. It's like, cool, I can offer you the same meditation I use that helped me get answers to healing my back naturally. He's like, rad. And then all these other people start chiming in and have stories about what's going on in their world. And before you know it, you can witness this domino effect.
Yeah.
Deep connection, sharing smiles, deep belly laughs that just happen organically because I set my reticular activation, my mind, like heat seeking to the opportunities for that. And then by the time my number gets called, felt like it flew by, and the woman calls my number. I go up there and I'm like, wow, it's so good to see you. Like, you have no idea how long I've been waiting. She's like, really? It's like, yeah. And I showed her my watch. I wish I still had it. I had a watch at the time that just said now on it. And it was, it didn't even tell time. It was just a watch that reminds us to be present. And she was laughing. It was the first time I've seen a woman that works at the DMV laugh. And it was like this ripple effect. She's like, girls, come see this watch. And the other, workers there had a kick out of it. And so we shared these laughs, and like 8 people laughed at the DMV. And we had this really cool, novel experience in somewhere that would be considered hell for a lot of people. And that all started by combining an elevated state with gratitude and a crystal clear intention. So you can do this before you go into the cafe that you've been to 100 times.
Yeah.
Decide, you know what? I'm going to see through the lens of unconditional love and just give lots of love today, and watch how you go in there. And when you say, how are you doing to the barista, you're actually like really present, want to know, want to dive into what's going on in his or her world. And before you know it, things start shifting. And if anything, as a minor side effect, you end up getting a lot of free stuff. It's funny. They're like, wow, it's so cool. Like, here, coffee's on me. Here's some gluten-free donuts. Like, come back. So it's an example of how we can infuse and incorporate this vacation vibration into our daily experiences. And this is what lights up our soul, because our soul seeks expansion instead of the mind, which will always try to take us back to Groundhog Day, the same things we've experienced before, the same suffering and pain, even because it knows we can survive there. So
Yeah.
mind is this ego, our guide, that's always about, safety first, don't get too close to the edge. And, and that's cool. If you can team up with your ego, then you can really enjoy the ride, this human experience, knowing that like your soul's here for the full meal deal, and that you have so many God-given gifts that you could share, and then die happy, knowing that when you look back, you're like, man, I played full out. I did it. And, brush your hands off, be like, all right, I can leave peacefully.
I've never heard the phrase vacation vibration, but I love it. There's this song that I listen to often called Vacation by the Dirty Heads. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that send that to me, and they're like, this is your song, bro. Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So for those listening, check out Vacation by the Dirty Heads. It is mwah, for this sort of beingness. And yeah, just really hammering in that we have no idea how infinite we are until we start playing at our fullest potential by showing up, as our full selves rather than ourself that's like filled with all this muck and stuck energy. When we clear that and we're able to really be present for each moment and bring our magic into each moment, it can like that those relationships that you made, for example, in the post office are like vibrating out to like all of, their communities by just creating evidence of what's possible in terms of how we interact with one another. So I just absolutely love that. We are kind of getting close to our time here, so I want to wrap up with the last couple of questions that I ask all my guests. And the first one is, what awakens your arrows? What turns you on? What makes you feel erotically alive?
Hmm. You know, right now it's seeing through the eyes of my girls. It's like an
Mm,
opportunity for me. Parenthood has just been so blissful for me because yes, it's the most responsibility I've ever taken on. And I had to work through a lot of resistance to get to that place. And then understanding that, wow, this level of responsibility equals so much greater meaning in my life.
mhm.
So it's like, yeah, with greater power comes greater responsibility. And so getting to experience life again and the playfulness and the innocence and the joy through my daughters, like getting to raise them as their father. I'm so glad they chose me because it is just such a great gift. So that really fires me up and helps me rise in love even more with my queen, Brandolyn,
Yeah.
because I get to witness her as a mother too. And it's just like, we just met each other and went all in. It was like, as soon as we said yes, it was just like, whoa, fell in love, you know, then we, you know, we went and got married, had the baby, got a puppy, all these things, and bought the house, just went on a whim and moved to Austin from the Bay. All these things happened that allowed for a lot of dreams to come true by doing this inner work
Yeah.
and receiving those lessons and blessings. And then what's so beautiful is that this relationship, unlike any other I've had before in the past, I have no skeletons in my closet. I don't have
Mhm.
like big secrets that I need to hide or like, I'm in such a safe container that I can share everything. And so by knowing thyself and going inward with each trigger, I discover new lessons and blessings that I can then share in my relationship, and we get to shape it any way we want. And so it's been this, talk about arrows, man. It's like a deep fire that I have with my queen and getting to witness her as a
Yeah.
mother. And so it just keeps expanding in new ways. And there's always seasons to it, and so I just feel very grateful to have said yes to all these dreams coming true. And I'm excited for what's to come.
Yeah, I feel like there's a whole other conversation that we could have all about relationships and how childhood trauma, all of that sort of affects it, and like really what it means to commit to someone and to have a relationship that's based off of the foundation of pure presence. I definitely resonate with being in a relationship that feels so alive because it is so present, because we're able to share all of ourselves. Things move really fast when that happens. My partner and I got engaged after like 5 months, because yeah, it just gets a lot easier and things get to happen a lot faster when you're on the same page in that regard. So love it. He also moved from the Bay Area. I moved from LA, so totally get it, in Austin as well, and absolutely loving it.
Amazing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny. As soon as we landed, we had an intuitive hit beforehand. We're like, I woke up one day and was like, wow. I looked at my wife and I said, 18 years in California, and I never thought I'd say this. I feel totally complete. Like, I think I did it all, like overturned all the rocks, did all the things multiple times. And I looked at her and she was in the same boat. And I was like, wow, what's our next highest excitement? And so we tuned in and looked at Utah, but Austin was our highest excitement. And as soon as we said yes to that, it's like all these doors opened up, like the perfect house that checked all the boxes, all the things. It was like jumping through a portal. we were celebrating my birthday in Cabo San Lucas while, our stuff was being moved here. And I remember tuning in and going, we were pregnant at the time. And I was like, something's going to go down. Like, we didn't know if it was like fires in the bay or earthquake, but we just sensed that like something's shifting. There's going to be some big occurrence that we should not wait around. Like, let's say yes to this intuition. And we jumped in, bought our house, landed here. And then that was 3 years ago, February, right after that, the pandemic began. And so it was like, wow, I'm glad we got settled and jumped through that portal before, everything hit the fan, because such an incredible community here. And it's been really supportive and feels like an incredible place to raise a family.
Yep, totally agreed. I had one of those like car crash situations in my process of moving to Austin, because I had that intuitive hit and ignored it until literally my apartment, like I lived in like bungalows in LA, and like the complex caught on fire. My car was totaled. It was like, all right, I get it. It's time to go. Thank you. This is happening for me. And it ended up working out perfectly, because I had like a tiny convertible and I basically got all of my money back on it. And they also gave me enough for a down payment for a brand new car that's now like a Jeep Wrangler that was perfect for moving across the country and also perfect for Austin. So
Blessings and blessings.
Yeah.
Way to say yes. It's amazing.
Even the car crash is for you. So if you have the patience to, trust and wait it out. Where can people find you and or support you?
Yes, charlesclay.coach. Super simple. Check out, it's a ton of resources there. In fact, when you go to that website, scroll to the bottom. When you subscribe to my newsletter, you get a free guided alignment activation. And this is a game changer. It is my favorite process for coming into full sovereignty and reclaiming that. And by sovereignty, I mean like filling up in your own life force energy so that there's no room for anything else. It's such a great cup filler that then you can go out and share your gifts, your talents, your passions with the world from that space. So it's a great good morning ritual. It's amazing for when you're feeling stuck, your energy is just off. So use that asset, that resource, try it out. Let me know how it goes. It is, if it's fun and it feels good, then it's working. And that's free to everybody. You can also find me on Instagram, charlesclay.coach. I'm happy to connect there. If any of this resonates, you want to dive deeper, just shoot me a DM. I'm happy to connect. And there's even, a laser focus method on that website, which is, once I sat with anxiety, I was inspired to create that group training, which has helped so many people work smarter than harder and create more free time for themselves. So kind of coming full circle with what we were talking about earlier, by gamifying your get to do list. And it's a process that's allowed a lot of people to share more of their God-given gifts, their talents, and get to serve a lot more people in the world. So it's really exciting. And there's much more to the Freedom from Pain is coming up soon, the online course, the evergreen for that. And then I always have, when there's space available, one-on-one clients, as well as group training for those that want to experience the inner peace process. So happy to connect.
Amazing. Sounds like a lot of really great opportunities to connect with you and to get in on this magic. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you again for joining me today. I also want to express my gratitude to the listener. Thank you once more for opening yourself up to the idea of sacred sexuality and living an expansive life. With so much gratitude and love, have a sexy and spiritual day. And I'll catch you next week on Talk Tantra to Me. Ta-ta.
Peace.